This is Simple Living with Biata. For the last 2 years, I've been building my dream home and homestead from scratch with very little experience. I've learned so many new trades along the way, starting with tree felling, excavation, moving towards electrical work, plumbing, framing, HVAC, and so much more. One of the biggest questions I get is about money, and I try to be super transparent with my builds when it comes to me making mistakes, who's helping me on my builds, that sometimes I do projects alone and other times I don't. And I think it's super important that we become transparent about finances. Obviously, no one needs to air their dirty laundry, but a build like this can come at a cost that I did not realize. You could say I was extremely naive. I wanted to say that this is not our first home. We bought our first home 9 years ago when prices were a lot better for being able to get into the housing market. We were able to take the equity from the sale of our first home during 2021 during the extreme price hike to put towards building this home. We are not doing this debt-free in any way, but that was the original goal. I thought that you could easily build a home for $225,000, but in Ontario you would really have to build small in order to be able to afford that. Just for clarity, all of my prices are in Canadian dollar. I live in Ontario, Canada, and that's the second highest place to buy a home in Canada. We have some high home prices, including building materials. First, let's start with where we've been living the last 3 years. This is the only way we've been able to make this home build possible in any way, shape, or form. We've been living in this trailer. It's 32 feet. It has 2 full bedrooms. We gutted the entire thing, renovated it, and put insulation around the base to winterize it. Other than burning through a really crappy amount of propane in the winter, this has been perfectly fine to live in. Not all trailers are the same though. We bought it for $18,500, renovated it for maybe another $4,500, bringing this to a $23,000 trailer. But this kind of build takes a ton of sacrifice, especially when you're not really high income earners. 5 months after selling our home, we were able to find 18 acres of raw land to purchase. We had the privilege and the blessing to be able to park this trailer on a friend's property, giving us time to search for the land at a decent price. This property was listed for $149,900. Land in Ontario is pretty expensive, but this property sat for like 3 weeks and no one even looked at it because of the wetlands. A lot of people don't know what to do, and these ones aren't even environmentally protected. We were able to offer $106,900, and after the lawyer fees and everything, it came to about $109,000 for the purchase of this land. There was absolutely nothing on it, no well, no septic, no driveway. It was raw land, and thus began the research of how to start doing all of these things. This is our driveway. It's about 300 feet long, and this was the very first project that was done. I do want to say before I start, the last time I did like a recap video, a lot of new people came on and then got very upset thinking that I did not build this home when I'm saying I did a self-build, because I started with the driveway. And then they stopped watching the video and then they commented, "You didn't build this house, da 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 da." And so wait, chill out. This is the only thing that I didn't really touch. My stepdad cut the trees, ran the excavator all while I was moving brush and pulling out the tarp, and I was also taking care of my daughter full-time at that time. That week, Craig taught me how to use an excavator for the first time. Now for the pricing of the driveway. I have 2 sections of culverts to allow water to run through. That was $1,100. The landscaping tarp that runs under the entire driveway, that was $900. The excavator rental for a 3.5 ton excavator was $1,300, not including diesel. The grade B gravel that's on the driveway was $10,200, which shook me, but we didn't cheap out on this. The gravel is very deep and the driveway is very wide in order to accommodate the large trucks that have come in here. I'm so sorry about the geese. Miscellaneous expenses were about $500. I paid Craig's fuel to get up here, for the excavator fuel, for Craig's chains to drop the trees on the driveway, and the driveway permit was $250. This brings the total cost of the driveway up to $14,200, which again shocked me beyond belief. Also, for gravel prices, just look at how deep it is here. Like, there is probably 2 feet of gravel in this section alone. This driveway is not done. I still have to top fill it with a gravel. During this whole build, there's been a lot of sacrifice due to having a little bit of extra stress, not a lot of time, and I'd say my health and nutrients have definitely suffered for it. There have been so many times where I've seen comments saying try AG1 to support my immune system, so I listened and I love it. AG1 is a foundational nutrient supplement drink that has 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients, and AG1 sources the best and highest quality ingredients they can find. I've definitely been missing key vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants in my diet during this build, so AG1 has given me peace of mind that I'm getting comprehensive nutrition without having to take 10 supplements a day. I love it, my family loves it. It supports healthy aging, supports healthy skin, hair, and nails, and improves focus and mental clarity. I love reaching for AG1 midday to get a boost of sustained energy. Head to my link in the description below to get a free 1 year of the AG D3 and K2 dropper, plus 5 AG1 travel packs with your first purchase of AG1. And thanks to AG1 for sponsoring me this week. The main reason why I got Craig to do the driveway was because I had decided I was never going to use a chainsaw from a very young age. My biological father passed away in a tree cutting accident when I was a baby, so it was always one of those things that was never gonna happen. But during that week where Craig was cutting trees and using the excavator, I felt really useless, and that if I'm gonna have a homestead, I should at least be able to cut small trees and use a chainsaw. And I really enjoyed it, to the point where I dedicated so much of my research to learning how to drop trees. And so I actually dropped all of the trees in the homestead area. So let's go over the prices of the land clearing. My larger chainsaw was $650. The chainsaw that I started with was like a group family Christmas gift, so that was really incredible. The chaps and helmet were $150. The excavator rentals were spread out over time. The excavator rentals totaled $2,800. The first week that we had the excavator to like remove the stumps and to clear a bunch of the logs out of the way, that was $1,300. But then over time, we would spend like 1 or 2 days doing land development, clearing some stumps, moving some logs just here and there. So I kind of spread out another 4 days of working on the excavator with other rentals. Chains and gas, maybe another $400. And again, Craig helped me with a lot of stump digging and taught me how to do that, so that I was able to start learning how to do that myself. The grand total for land clearing was around $4,000. Now, you can get someone to come in and clear your land if you have the right type of trees, but they will take all of your wood, and sometimes you can break even. This is where you have properties that have like really nice oak trees and stuff like that. We didn't have enough really nice trees to be able to resell, but some properties do. So definitely look into that if you don't want to be able to use your wood that you've dropped to like heat your home and stuff like that. The next big task and project was bringing in electrical. This required a lot of time and a lot of learning to figure out all the code for bringing in electrical. We actually brought our electrical in underground. If we didn't, it would have been like a $60,000 project if we brought the lines down the road to our house, because we had to buy 1,200 feet of our main line to get electricity to our home. The cost of bringing in electrical was an excavator rental, $1,300 plus fuel probably brought it to around $1,500. We rented a 3.5 ton, and the track came off of it on a weekend when I was using it, unfortunately. We paid the electrical provider $3,300. This included a free pole because the other one was old, and this included installing the transformer and connecting the lines together. The main line that runs from the pole at the end of our property down to the transformer was $8,400. The Brooklyn concrete transformer pad, which is the concrete pad that the transformer sits on, was $1,000 including delivery. I paid $500 in miscellaneous like electrical hookup labor. The big O that we ran 1,200 feet of was $2,800. The miscellaneous items like the 12-2 wire that I had to buy for the panel, the 4 grounding rods, the grounding plate, the 4/0 armored cable that goes from the transformer to the meter disconnect, which was $32 a meter, the RV cable and plug and breakers wires and connectors, etc. That was $2,800. The permit was $200, and the meter disconnect and some other miscellaneous items was $2,200. The only thing I couldn't find was the concrete bags that I ordered to put over the spots where there was bedrock because we couldn't get the main line deep enough. So I would say maybe, I don't know, another $1,000 just in miscellaneous items that we had to use. So I'm gonna bring the grand total up to $24,000 to bring 1,200 feet of line in. All of the trenching and all of that was free labor by Craig. My husband helped us work that week, and I was the one who backfilled the trench for the most part. So again, that's where I was able to continue learning how to use the excavator. And everyone needs a Craig. I'm so thankful. I do realize that's an extreme privilege. As for savings, if we didn't do the electrical trail, we would have had to get 5 brand new poles costing about $30,000 plus labor plus bringing it up the driveway. I'm thinking it would have been a $40,000 cost to hire out. Next is the septic bed install. So septic beds for our size go for between $20,000 to $25,000, including all the materials and labor. I had Craig's help for this. He was a septic installer for a very long time. The permit for the septic install was $290. The septic designs were about $700. The Brooklyn concrete order, which includes the 3,600 liter tank, all of the PVC perforated piping, the lids, all of the connectors, the pump chamber because we did not have natural fall to our septic bed, the alarm, and the grinder pump came to $5,700. So the grinder pump was $1,700. The 3,600 liter tank was $1,725, and the pump chamber was $745. The mantle we did not have to bring in, so we saved a bunch of money on not having to bring in more soil. The excavator rental we rented for a week, but we only used 2 days out of that week to build the septic bed, so that was about $600. We needed 1 load of clear stone, that was $586. 2 loads of septic sand or Whitby sand, that was $2,387. I think maybe like $500 more on miscellaneous items like the poly tube, a little bit more PVC pipe that I had to get, and other miscellaneous items, bringing the total septic bed install to $10,700, and that's a $10,000 savings in labor, which is pretty incredible. I would say the only tool, if you were to do this fully on your own from scratch and learn it all, the only other tool that you would need to either rent or buy would be a transit or something along those lines, and I do think it's possible to do on your own without a Craig, but I am so thankful for the Craig. You would just have to do a ton of research, which if you're doing a build like this from scratch, you already know you're gonna have to do a ton of research. Next up is my drilled well. So first of all, we spent a lot of time, I'm fighting with these bees right now. So we really tried to find a spot on this property where we could do a dug well to try to save some money here, and I don't know, maybe a dug well would be closer to $5,000 with the well tiles and the excavator rental and all of those things, but we hit bedrock everywhere. And so we had to go with a drilled well, and it was a gamble. So drilled wells up here cost $30,000. I even got some $31,000 to $32,000 quotes to get guaranteed water. And I was just shook by that price because 3-4 years ago, that guaranteed water price was $15,000. So I found a company that drilled by foot. It was not guaranteed water. If you hit a certain length and you required fracking, it cost a certain amount of money. But at the end of the day, he was like, it might only cost you $3,000 more than going with the $30,000 guaranteed well route. So I thought it was a good gamble because in my area, we do tend to have a higher water table than most areas. The well drilling costs for the company to come in was $15,255. This did not include the pump install and hooking it up to the house. The labor for that is usually around $3,000. You can either hire the company that did the well, or you can hire a plumber, and the average was $3,000. So I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it myself even if it takes me a week. So the parts for like the poly tube, the torque arrestor, the pitless adapter, all of those things, that was only $300. The control panel was $125. The pipe insulation, the hose clamps, maybe around 20 bucks. The well tee that I rented was $50. That was to put the pump into the well. The total cost of the drilled well, including installing the pitless adapter and the well pump, was $15,750, and that included a free well pump that our old neighbor gave us. So in my mind, I saved $15,000 by doing the research, by finding a company that would drill by foot, by doing my own well pump install. That was a $3,000 savings. I am so thankful we hit water where we did, and we have an abundance of water that is super clean. On to the shed build. So this was the first time I learned how to frame anything. Craig came up and helped me here and there on the shed build, and I think that was integral to starting the house build. I think it's great practice to start with a shed before you build your home. So I have 3 lumber orders: 2,360, 455, 189. The nail gun that I purchased, that I also built the house with, that was $300. The nails were $100. The insulation, we've only insulated half of the shed so far. That was $350. The roof, I think, was around $500. And the lumber for the shelves inside, I think, was about $250. That brings the total up to $4,500 for this shed. It's obviously not done. I need to do siding. I need to finish up the insulation. I'm thinking maybe another $1,000 or $2,000. For a 16 by 10 shed, that's at the maximum height capacity. So maybe I saved about $3 or $4 grand once this whole thing is finished. That brings me to the end of the land development. So for the cost of land and all of the work that we put in is $182,150. Just in land development alone, I think we saved about $90,000 in labor costs. And we saved about $40,000 in the cost of the land by waiting and being diligent on what we looked for. And if you want to include the price of the trailer and our living expenses, that's another $23,000. Included in the land development costs is all of the excavator rentals. That has come to $9,375 for 5 rentals. That's about the quarter of a price of owning a used excavator. Not quite sure I made the right decision on renting versus buying a used one. I do have maybe 1 or 2 more rentals, so that'll be $2,000 to $4,000. And my goal is to buy kind of a multi-purpose tractor. Next up is the home build costs. So we're gonna start with permits and architecture work. The permit for my area was around $4,500. The house drawings were $3,275. The deck drawings were $565. And not including the engineered slab, the architectural drawings came to $3,840. Price aside, I would have done more research on who I hired to do the architectural work. A lot has just gone wrong with like certain things not being right on the plans. And I think that if you're starting new on a project like this, you really have to hire someone who's willing to work with you and who's not going to get upset with you that you're not hiring an entire crew to do this build. First, let's start with the foundation. I'm honestly a bit shocked by the cost of this. I thought it was a lot less than it was, but after doing all the math for it, I'm kind of blown away, and I almost wish I went with a different foundation. But at the end of the day, I do like the foundation type that I went with just because of our high water table and having the proper drainage around the foundation with all of the clear stone. I think just really was an ideal choice. So the slab engineered drawings were $2,120. The form boards, the 1-inch pine, was $1,600. I kind of wish I went with 2-inch instead of 1-inch form boards because I would have ended up using them in my garden for garden beds, but I do think I'm going to reuse a lot of these form boards in the house some way. Excavation number 1 rental. This was for removing the stumps and leveling out the foundation area, and I'm sure we used the excavator that week for more than just the foundation. I think we also used it to move logs and such. That was $825. The machine broke down midweek, so we didn't have to pay the full $1,300. Then I did all the plumbing, and then we had to bring the excavator back in, and we went with a bigger excavator this time, and I am so thankful. We went with a 6-ton with a much larger bucket. I do not recommend going any smaller than that for backfilling a foundation with gravel. The total excavator rental cost was over $2,000. We used it for the foundation for 3 days, bringing the total to $940 for the foundation. The gravel under the slab. This ensures that water does not get trapped and cause heaving in your foundation. It's an integral part of the floating slab. I brought in 10 loads of gravel before backfilling, and that cost $4,435, and that was with wholesale pricing through my friend's account. Next, the insulation. That was $2,595 for 2-inch rigid board insulation underneath and around the entire foundation. The rebar mesh and P-stirrups was $4,500. Now, they messed up their quote, and it should have been closer to around $6,500, but the mess up in their quote made my foundation like 3 inches higher in concrete than what it needed to be because they made the piece stirrups too big and they quoted me for smaller ones, and I approved the smaller ones. I had already installed too many of them to go back, and so they ate the cost on their end for the materials and I ate the cost on my end for the concrete, and it kind of evened out in the end. The concrete for materials, we had 5 trucks at $9,430. The pump truck rental, we could not get a cheaper one because we were so last minute. This was $1,985 for a giant pump truck. The concrete labor was $3,585. Next was to backfill the foundation. This required Big O, which I think I actually got for a really good price, maybe 200 bucks. It needed to be the perforated kind with a sock. And the clear stone and sand to backfill the foundation was $2,970. Plus I rented an excavator for a week, and out of that week, I spent 2 days on backfilling. So that's around $600 plus gas, so about $700. I honestly hate this grand total. So that brings the grand total up to $37,100. I did not expect that. You can build cheaper foundations than that. And at the time, concrete was so hard to get. So being able to pour our foundation in one day made a pretty big difference as well. Onto the lumber package costs. So the lumber package was $15,000, and I want to say that I spent more than that with extra things that I had to buy. We're going to call it a $17,000 lumber package, not including the trusses, but it is including the LVL beam, which was a $3,000 cost, and it included the rafters. The trusses came to $9,945, not including the craning fees. I think I paid $800 for the craning fees. I also paid for some labor for getting the trusses installed. I helped with some of the truss install. My neighbor refused to allow me to pay him, so I made him and his family a gift basket, but I paid for his employee for the day. So that was maybe 200 bucks in labor. It wasn't very much. Now, I did save $30,000 in labor by building most of the walls by myself. Craig would come up where he could. I think he came up for 3 days over the 3-week period where I was framing the walls to help me out. My husband helped a bit during that time outside of his work schedule, and it was a huge savings being able to have all of our friends and family come over and help us raise our walls for the wall raising party. And to get the plywood on the roof, I honestly predominantly did it by myself, other than the 12-12 pitch. My husband would help me get like some of that started. I'm definitely thankful to save that $30K though. Next up is the wood boiler and entire heating system, which it came to a lot more than I expected it to be honest. In-floor heating design, $105. In-floor heating materials, $1,975. The wood boiler itself, $11,250. Piping for bringing the hot liquid to the house where it heats our home, $4,070. And it was free labor because I did the work myself to bring the pipe over to the house. Oh, I need to add an excavator cost to this. We're gonna say excavator costs $450. The circulation pump and parts came to $1,500, and then our backup electric heater plus the cost of glycol and the labor came to $10,775. Now, out of that $10,775, I'm sure a lot were materials because the electric boiler did cost a lot of money, but I would say this was like the biggest thing that was so well worth hiring out. The tools that are required for copper and the experience that are required for a boiler system is way beyond my comprehension level, bringing our grand total for the boiler system to $30,000. Now, this is a predominantly off-grid heating system where we're hoping to be able to utilize most of the wood from our property to heat our home with, but I will be bringing in some hardwoods. So is it worth it? I don't really think it might be worth it for everyone. Is it worth it for me? Honestly, yes. And my wood splitting videos do make me a fair amount of money. So I'm thankful for that. So thank you for watching. Next up, my windows and my doors. So you do not have to go this expensive when it comes to building a home. You don't have to go custom. Truly, you don't. I was extra bougie on my windows and I did not need to be, but I'm so thankful I was because I love it. I have 8 windows and 3 exterior doors. 2 of them are sliding doors, and the main front entrance with the 2 side lights, that was a $5,000 something door. That was definitely more expensive than I wanted, but I also got quotes on doors that were $8,000, so this seemed like a good middle ground for doors. Out of the 8 windows, I have 3, I would say, extra large windows that were custom. I have 3 large windows that were regular size. I have a medium sized window in the bathroom and then a small window in one one of the showers. The labor was free. It was me, my husband, my mom, one of my friends. Craig came and helped the one day. Silicone and screws, maybe 200 bucks. Blue skin, the spray adhesive, and the window bucking, I'm gonna say was around $500. I don't have exact numbers for that. And the windows and doors themselves were $24,800, bringing the grand total up to $25,500. Ouch. I saved a bit of money by not having my interior windows painted and keeping them white, but you don't have to have a window like this that matches the roof line. I'm thankful I went with it because I get to look out this window every day and I absolutely love it. But you can go with cheaper windows and get the same effect of looking out into nature. Next up is the HVAC. Now this is one of the only other things that I got a quote for and decided based off the quote that I think I had the potential to be able to do it myself. So my quotes were in around $6,000 for the whole HVAC system. I'm not entirely done, but I have everything I need to finish it off, maybe give or take $100, $200. The ERV design was $365. The duct supplies I got at a very good wholesale price at $1,065. The ERV unit and all of the switches for it came to $1,900, and wiring will be included in the wiring cost, bringing the cost of the HVAC to $3,330, saving me around $3,000 to do it myself. Now for plumbing. So for all of the ABS that's under the slab, I spent about $2,000. For the PEX tube that's inside the poly tube underneath the slab, that was about $700. So we're gonna call under the slab before the concrete $2,700. Since then, I've done the venting. That was about $700 worth in ABS. And I still need to do my master ensuite bathroom. And I need to get all of the PEX tubes in this bathroom and in the kitchen all in the right spots. So I've done another order with shower valve kits, elbows, the PEX rings for the expansion tool, the washer plumbing kit, the hose spigot, and a few other things. So that's gonna be about $500. I do have enough PEX, I believe, to do the master bathroom. So I'm just gonna say an extra $700 to do the rest of the plumbing for the rough-in because I still have to do my pressure test for the ABS and buy caps and glue them and all of that. So an extra $700 there, bringing the plumbing rough-in total to $4,100. I believe I've saved about $3,000 or $4,000 in labor for plumbing, but I've seen insane plumbing quotes online. So I'm curious, what would you think it would cost to hire out this whole house to do all of the rough-in plumbing work? On to electrical. So this panel, I actually included that in the cost of bringing in electricity. I didn't mean to. This was approximately $1,000. Bringing the main line, the armored cable from the meter disconnect to the house, including the 12-2 tech cable that runs from the wood boiler to the house. That total transaction was $1,220. It was probably like $900 to $1,000 just for the main line. That tech cable wasn't too expensive from what I recall. Miscellaneous items like tape, breakers, clamps, all of those things have come to around $600 so far. I do have more than what you see right here in boxes. And the other day I went out and bought another spool of 14.2, a spool of 14.3, and a bunch of vapor boxes and regular boxes for all of the connections, bringing the total electrical inside so far to $3,635. I am nowhere near done. You're gonna have to come back for another video when I'm done the house where I break down the rest of the costs because I have a lot more breakers to fill in. I probably have a lot more wire to buy. I'm assuming it's gonna be an expensive endeavor, but I was told by an electrician that it's about $1,000 a day and my house might take, 3 days, 4 days to wire. So it's about a $3,000 to $4,000 savings for this home. For this room, I still need to buy an iron and UV light filtration system. I need to get the pressure tank in here. I have purchased the hot water tank. That was $2,400. And I actually have purchased my bathtub. That was $900. And last but not least, I have the roof. I did severely mess up my first roofing order. A little bit of column A, column B, partly my fault, partly that my plans lacked details. So I required 2 roofing orders for this. The first order with a bunch of incorrect sizes was $9,940. The second order had 20 panels all at the correct size for my roof. They gave me a very good deal because they felt bad about the lack of communication. So that was $2,675. I have so many roofing panels left over for the chicken coop, for the wood sheds, and for my husband's bunkie. So all of those roofing panels will not go to waste, but I have paid for them, so I am including them in the cost. The ice and water shield that went on the roof, I think it's called the High Platinum platinum ice and water shield, super sticky stuff, has an entire butyl backing so that every screw that goes in there wraps around that butyl backing, and it makes sure there's going to be no leaks. It's a much more expensive product, but definitely worth it at $2,340. My drill roofing snips were $80. That was a great purchase. My harness set was $300, also a great purchase. And my paid labor so far for 2 days, one with just one person and the next time with 2 people, that has been $950 so far. I do need him to come back to help me finish off the last details and the roof ridge vents. This brings the roofing total to $16,585. For the roof, I did actually do a lot of the labor by myself with Craig or with my husband, and doing the ice and water shield on my own, I think it was around $1,000 of savings for doing the ice and water shield and $4,000 of savings doing the roof, bringing it to a total of $5,000 worth of savings in labor. I'm absolutely certain there are more big costs that I am missing, or just miscellaneous items that have added up over time, like this stone at our front step. That was $880 for materials and labor. So for the home build portion, the total costs are $160,515. That plus the cost of land development at $181,150, plus the trailer at $23,000. That brings us to a grand total of $364,665. And let's be honest, there are probably multiple miscellaneous purchases, tools that I'm missing that I haven't realized I've purchased. So I'm going to bring the official total up till now to $370,000. For the cost savings for the actual house build, with family pitching in and helping out, I think we're at around a $55,000 savings. That plus the land development savings brings us to $145,000 in savings. And I want to know what you think. Do you think that we've saved actually more than that or less than that? Yes, we are doing this with our own money, but we are beyond grateful and privileged and blessed to be able to do this journey and have the support of our family behind us. Having my family support and Cam's family support, they don't love to be mentioned as much on social media, but they've been integral in this process as well, along with our friends and family coming and helping raising the walls. From my old neighbor Brian picking up the call whenever I have a question, my friend Luke, my friend Kurt helping me with the plumbing and answering my questions, and of course Craig. So if you're wanting to do a build journey like this and you're brand new, I highly recommend get to know people within your community, provide value to them as well. Whenever you have a material supplier, ask them questions, and if they're willing to work with you and answer questions, definitely hire them, even if they cost a little bit more, because that is a valuable connection to have. I have many times gone out of my way to work with a supplier that treats me better, and I've ditched other companies when they're rude. And if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button to follow along, where I learn, show my mistakes, sometimes provide value, and provide transparency on what it takes to build your home from scratch. Drop any questions in the comments below, hit that like button, it's a huge help, and check out AG1 linked in my description or into the pinned comment below. And with that, I will see you next week.